everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Chronic Burnout. I'm your host, Carol Jean Whittington, and today we have an incredibly important and eye-opening topic to delve into. Have you ever wondered why energy and emotional regulation becomes such a Herculean task when you're in the throes of burnout? Or why some days you feel like you're riding a roller coaster of emotions and not feeling motivated? Well, today we're peeling back the layers on one of the biggest, yet often overlooked contributors to burnout: blood sugar. Yes, you heard that right. Blood sugar doesn't just affect your physical health, it has a massive impact on your emotional regulation and can significantly influence how quickly or slowly you recover from burnout. And to help us navigate this critical topic, we have the brilliant Dr. Nicole Maholy joining us today. Dr. Maholy is a chiropractic physician with a master's degree in nutrition and functional medicine, and she's also a certified nutrition specialist. Nicole's going to share her expert insights and some practical tips to help you transform your blood sugar management so you can gain sustainable energy and start feeling more balanced and in control. So, if you've been feeling more irritable or exhausted than usual, and you're ready to get off that emotional roller coaster, this episode is for you. Stay tuned as we uncover the truth about blood sugar and burnout and how you can take proactive steps towards better health and well being. Nicole's also going to be sharing some insights and an opportunity for a workshop that she offers that you can dive into and get some top 5 things to help you on this process. She and I are going to talk about all of this goodness today. I'm live in the chat, so if you have questions, say hello. Let me know you're here. I always love to hear where you're joining us from. And also, let us know if you have any questions along the way. Dr. Nicole will be answering all of the questions here on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you're joining us for the replay on Spotify, hey, next week, hop in and join us live. Stick around to the end. I'll share who my guest is next week as we continue our May Mental Health Month and our focus on the areas that really help us during burnout with our mental health and well-being. And I got another one. I got another fun one this week. Oh my goodness, we got another fun intro song. The team and I are having so much fun. This one's a little more upbeat, a little more rock and roll. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Feeling burnt out in this crazy world. Got you feeling like a night explode. But let me tell you, my friend, there's a way to shake off the burnout and seize the day. Carol Jean's got the keys to unlock your dreams with the podcast. She'll light up your self-esteem. She'll teach you how to feel your passion and desire. Leave behind the burnout. Let your dreams catch fire. Rise up and chase your dreams. Burn out just a shadow. Not as real as it seems. With Carol G's podcast.
I hope it does the same thing for you, my friend. Okay, we have got one heck of a guest today, and I cannot tell you, when I met Dr. Nicole Maholy, we were in LA, and I immediately knew she was one of my people. We were in this huge conference, and for an exercise that we had to do together for a voice coach, which Tracy was amazing, and I think you guys have probably heard me mention her here on the show. Well, Nicole was my partner, and we had to do something super uncomfortable together. We had to introduce ourselves. I mean, talk about really, I love it because Tracy Goodwin says, your worst is going to show up in one of 2 places: when you have to tell me about yourself, or you have to sell me something. And Nicole and I had to tell each other about ourselves. Well, this was a gift. Not only did I get to meet Dr. Nicole Maholy, I got to learn more about her. And when she told me what she does and who she's being in the world, I got so excited. Like the whiz pops, the sparks of joy. Y'all hear me talk about it. She gives me all the good feels. So my guest today is Dr. Nicole Maholy, and she has a background as a chiropractic physician with a master's degree in nutrition and functional medicine and is a certified nutrition specialist. She has a passion for natural approaches to well being with a specific interest and expertise in lifestyle strategies that improve blood sugar control. Dr. Nicole is devoted to helping people reverse type 2 diabetes and prediabetes naturally with lifestyle. And guys, I am so in love with her YouTube channel, Natural Diabetes Reversal. I mean, not for any other reason than what she shares, even though I don't have prediabetes or diabetes, I listen for people that I love. I get so much from her show for myself, and I'm always sending her questions. She's always answering and sending all kinds of great insights. Today, we're talking about something that you may not recognize has such a huge impact in getting out of burnout and how it impacts you when you're in burnout, even more so, and that's your blood sugar. So, help me welcome my amazing guest and my wonderful friend, Dr. Nicole Maholy. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Hello, Carol Jean. Thank you so much for having me. I am beyond thrilled to be here. So, thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to check. Was it as hard for you when we did that exercise with Tracy, the very first one, not the second one, but the first one, when we had to introduce ourselves? Was that like hard? Did that feel hard for you too?
Yes, it felt so awkward. It just felt awkward and uncomfortable. And yeah, but then you're right. The second time after we learned those techniques from her, it just was so much easier. And I also was so grateful to have met you. That was such a neat opportunity. And yeah, like I said, I'm just happy to be here with you.
And I'll tell you, I love it because the universe always serves up and delivers exactly what we need, whether we know it or not. So the day that the conference was over and we were leaving, I was out there with my luggage and all the stuff, and we we're all in line waiting for the van to take us to the airport, and it got full. And there were a couple of us still there, and here you come. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's Nicole.
I'd love to just, yes. And I'd love to just share this real quick. That morning I had been kind of reflecting on all of the people that I had met, and I was kind of kicking myself. I was like, I didn't get Carol Jean's contact information. And then, like you said, the universe just served up what we needed. It just so happened that you were right in front of me in the line for the bus, and we got to spend that ride together. So that was a blessing.
It was indeed. And I was so excited. I mean, would I say that I always get the most incredible, like joyous little happy surprises every day in my life? You were definitely my joyous happy surprise.
Thank you. Likewise.
Nicole, I love what you do. And this was for me one of the very first things when I didn't even recognize I was in burnout. I didn't know that yet. What I knew was I was miserable and I had a ton of health stuff that was showing up. I was on like 15 different medications at the time. My POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, was just like in this huge flare up. Everything was hard. I had gained so much weight because I had been on this low dose cortisone every day for like 2 years. And so I had gained like almost 100 pounds, and everything was just not going well. Like I had a lot of inflammation. I had a lot of pain. Oh my gosh, the pain in my joints. Like I would stand up in the mornings, and I kid you not, I swear the hair on my head would hurt all the way down to like outside of my feet. It's like I didn't know that something outside of my feet could hurt, but my feet hurt so bad it felt like it was something outside. It was so bad.
Yeah.
And because, I had gone through pre-med and organic chemistry and all these things, and I was like, I'm smart. I know some stuff. Something's not working. I got to figure this out. What do I actually have control over? Because I felt like I had no control over anything. And my first thought was, on a cellular level, I can control everything that goes in my mouth. And if I can start on a cellular level with how I'm nourishing or finding some health and comfort in my cells and in my mouth and my food, I think I can figure something out. And that's where I started. And I know that you've got your own personal journey through burnout, Nicole, and I would love for you to share that.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I would love to. And thank you for sharing your experience as well. So when it comes to burnout for me, as you mentioned, my background is as a chiropractor. So I went through chiropractic school, and sort of right out of chiropractic school, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to jump right in there and open my own business. So I just jumped right in. I did it. And it was amazing. And chiropractic school prepared me so well for patient care. But what it did not prepare me as well for was how to run a business. So my first few years in chiropractic, as running my own wellness practice, essentially, were intense. It was, I was working long hours, I was working late, and I wasn't taking great care of myself, right? So I was not exercising, I wasn't doing anything for stress management, I wasn't socializing, and I was not doing well with nutrition. So I was definitely addicted to sugar at the time. Culver's, I could tell you the flavor of the day, any day of the week. So, I was doing those things, and how that manifested for me was definitely exhaustion. I was very exhausted, both physically and mentally. And I ended up with something called reactive hypoglycemia often. And what that is it's, when you're hooked on sugar and you eat a bunch of sugar, your blood sugar will spike. And then when it comes down, it comes crashing down. And that doesn't feel so great. So what I decided to do next was get my master's degree in nutrition and functional medicine. So that was both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, I now was doing a master's program in my free time, but it was the best decision of my life, because as I was learning, and I knew I knew that what I was doing to myself with nutrition wasn't healthy, but it was kind of fun as, when I was in this master's program, to apply the principles that I was learning to my life. And slowly but surely, my energy started to get better, and I had the capacity to want to exercise again and to want to socialize and return to doing the things that I used to love to do. And I didn't realize what was happening at the time, but looking back on it, I can definitely say that as I was stabilizing my blood sugar with the nutrition principles that I was using, that's when I started to feel like myself again. And for me, that was what did it.
And what you just talked about, Nicole, oh my gosh, this is so important. And it's what I talk about to all my clients in the unveiling method. And you just highlighted this just so beautifully. Thank you for that. And thank you for sharing your story, because first of all, we get in this place where we're like, I got this stuff. I got this great idea. My heart is in this. I'm going to build this thing. And we don't really know the things that we don't know till we get in there and we're like, well, I don't know. We're just like figuring it out, right? And the big important thing that you highlighted in what you just shared for me, and I think where it really kind of comes into this conversation that we're having today, and that was when you started to have more energy and feel like you had like this clarity and this capacity to then want to do exercise and things like that. And when clients come in and they go through my nourishment needs, nourishment key reflections, and that's basically your 30 basic human needs, we start with the physiological, because it's so easy for people to pinpoint their physical kind of concrete things. I need food, I need water, I need exercise. What's really interesting is in that physiological category, all my data and research over the last 3 years into burnout and how people rate this, the number one thing that people say they do not have enough of, that they don't have this even maybe showing up in their life at all, is physical activity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. I mean, I can say for myself in chiropractic school and my first few years in my business, it was sort of the first thing to go in terms of, I'm just, when your energy starts to go down, you just like don't feel, even though we know that doing the activity event, it ends up giving us more energy, but you just don't feel like doing it sometimes. And yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
You do. But here's the thing. We naturally feel like that's what we should be doing. Mm-hmm. We know that's usually the first thing that falls off. And like the approach is usually, oh, well, I need to put the energy that I have into drinking more water, making sure I'm eating better and exercising. Those are the top three things people always think they need to do first. And I'm usually coming right in there going, okay, I'm going to upset the apple cart and go against the grain here. And I'm going to really challenge this. And I'm going to tell you, don't do that. Because you said something that is so important. And this is what I've learned in my research and in my own life. And that is, when I'm nourishing these other areas, those naturally just start to happen without me having to force it.
Right. So true. I love that. Absolutely. When you have
Nicole,
the, when you're starting to feel better, then you feel like you have the capacity to do that,
right. And the thing that makes it even harder is when we think that's what we're supposed to be doing, because that's sort of like what we hear out here in the world and the noise. And we got like this internal shame storm.
Yes. Right. It's
Did you
very
have that
easy to
happen?
be hard. Oh yeah. It's really easy to be hard on yourself and think about, I knew, the things that I should have been doing too, right? Like I had been through chiropractic school and I'd been, I knew all of the things, but at the time when you're in it, yeah, I definitely had the shame storm.
Oh my gosh. And then, as stress builds, then it shows up in our body because we go back to that very primal part of our biology, which is we are under stress and threat. So we have to preserve and make sure we're storing extra fat, which is cortisol fat is very different from our regular fat and how it will shed or move out of the body, right? And
Yes.
our blood sugar is such a big part. And I love that you're going to dive into this. The blood sugar levels are what drive our energy levels. And when you were just talking about how, you were eating more sugar and so you were having these crashes, I remember, and looking back on it, I went, oh my gosh, they told me I was hypoglycemic. I don't think that's what that was. I think it was I was crashing so hard because I had like these instabilities in my blood sugar levels. So talk to us about blood sugar levels and energy levels. How does all this work together?
Yes, thank you. And you're right. You were kind of mentioning the blood sugar roller coaster that a lot of people end up on. And yes, blood sugar drives energy. So energy levels. So there's no better picture of what this looks like than with kids. So we can see it so plainly and clearly with kids. When you think about what happens when you give kids sugar, right? Like the blood sugar spike, they are bouncing off the walls. Right. It's wild. And when you have a blood sugar spike, you have a lot of energy, but it's like wired energy, like anxious energy, right? And so that's what's happening when you eat a lot of sugar, refined carbohydrates, things like that. That gives that blood sugar spike. And so you have the energy, but it's like not stable energy. It's that wired, anxious type of energy. And then as your blood sugar is coming back down, it doesn't just stop at baseline. It keeps cooking. So, and then you're in this blood sugar crash. And so what we typically see with kids is that's when like the meltdowns happen, right? They're having the tantrums and the meltdowns, and that's like before snack time or lunch or whatever it is, right? So for us, a lot of times it can manifest differently for different people. What I got a lot of was when I was getting that reactive hypoglycemia, and that's what that is. When that blood sugar starts to crash, that's reactive hypoglycemia, as your body is sort of trying to course correct. And it can be like you feel shaky and you're exhausted. A lot of times people get real exhausted. So if you ever get in the afternoon, like you're just like, kind of like hard to keep the eyeballs open type of thing. Nausea, I got nausea real bad when I would get it. But the term hangry, that's what that is. That irritable. Yes, that irritable. Sometimes it's like hangry is not even a strong enough word, right? It's like, get out of the way. Yeah, need food now.
My sister used to call me the big red hairy monster from Bugs Bunny, Gossamer with the big red hairy monster and the tennis shoes. And I was like, what are you talking about? Not recognizing like how different I was when I got hangry.
Oh yeah, it's the real deal. It's like, and it's your body saying, you need to give me glucose right now because my blood sugar is, your blood sugar is tanking. So, and that's what's happening. It's your body just needing that energy. And so a lot of times what happens is when we're in that type of a roller coaster, when we're in a blood sugar crash, we tend to crave or reach for the things that are that quick energy, right? So the things that are maybe not the healthiest of things, but the sugar, the refined carbs, that's what we tend to reach for. And while that feels good at the time, and it all of a sudden you feel like, okay, I feel like a normal person again for a second, that it sets the stage for another cycle, right? Because then your blood sugar is going to spike again. And after, what comes up must come down. It's going to come crashing down again. And then you're going to be let's reach for the sugar. So it ends up being a little bit of a roller coaster of spikes and crashes. And with your energy, you can feel, it feels like a roller coaster when it comes to your energy too. So.
Oh my gosh, it really does. And,
Yeah.
as you're talking, this is why I love to talk to you, because I've got like all the whiz pops over here. So my brain is just lighting up with all the stuff because you are hitting on all these really important things. And, Nicole, one of the things that I didn't realize until I got to the other side, because, contrast gives us clarity. Thank you so much. Even when it's painful contrast to learn, because we learn the hard way so often as humans. And it was in that blood sugar crash, like that spike and drop, right? I would go for the quick hit. And that's absolutely like the human natural thing is I'm hurting. I need to stop this. And I need to stop it fast. And we learned that a candy bar, a cup of coffee with cream and sugar, an energy bar, juice, something that's got loaded with sugar gives us that quick hit. And we get to a place, like we talk about in psychology, called hedonic adaptation. So this is now our norm. We have now taken like what used to be fueled most likely by some healthy fat, and we have this clear mind and we have this long burning fuel. We are now in this cycle of this is just how my energy runs. And so this is how I have to manage it. And then you're on this hamster wheel of trying to navigate these ups and crashes. And for me, one of the biggest places, and Nicole, I want to know what you think and what your experience is, and for you and for your clients, it impacted my emotions and my cognitive function so bad. I didn't even know how bad my brain fog was until I got clarity from managing and maintaining some stable blood sugar. And the other thing was I didn't recognize how my emotions were so deeply tied to that blood sugar roller coaster.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you touched on that because a lot of times I'll put the mood part onto the energy. Where your blood sugar goes, your energy and mood go, right? So I mentioned when our blood sugar spikes, we have that wired energy and it feels anxious, right? So that is so true. And a lot of people, that's true for a lot of people. Your mood definitely also follows that blood sugar scenario. And, maybe it's a protective mechanism of the brain trying, when we're in that blood sugar crash, kind of helping us get to a place where we can get that fuel. But yes, you mentioned brain fog, and that is another, I didn't mention it when people experience reactive hypoglycemia, because a lot of people experience different symptoms, but brain fog is actually one of those symptoms. And something that I'll just bring up because I think it sort of relates here is that Alzheimer's disease, which is, a cognitive disease, is actually linked to insulin resistance in the brain. We call it in functional medicine, we call it type 3 diabetes. So it definitely relates to the blood sugar mayhem that is going on. So your blood sugar levels definitely impact your cognition and your mood as well.
And from a burnout standpoint, one of the warning signs is brain fog and difficulty focusing, concentrating, executive dysfunction. Your cognitive load ability diminishes. And so think about this for a second. If you're experiencing some serious brain fog, like you're having a really hard time, just like this is what happened to me. So here's the example. I was looking at a chair. I knew the word for that, but I could not think of that simple word chair. So I went, the thing you sit on with the 4 legs. And the kids were looking at me like, Mom, it's a chair. And I'm like, I know, but I couldn't think of the word for that, right? Those are the kind of things that can happen. And so, Nicole, just for some contrast here, because we're going to talk about how to know your numbers in a minute, because I think that's something that most of us don't really grasp what those numbers mean when we're talking about blood sugar and A1C and things like that. But so that people know the difference, because this is how the unveiling method was born. This is how it was born. It was when I read a book, when I was looking at how do I, on a cellular level, help myself to feel better, because that's all I knew. And I didn't know I was in burnout. And I learned there are two types of energy. There is a glucose energy, and then there is a fat-fueled energy. And these are two very different kinds of energy. So, Nicole, when we're talking about that roller coaster, we're talking about that glucose, right? And
Absolutely.
then we've got more fat-sustained fuel that our brain uses more efficiently and burns off in a different way. And that's a totally different experience. So that we've talked about the blood sugar, glucose kind. What about this other side? Where are we kind of heading? What is the optimum, right?
What does this even mean? Right. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. So I'm hoping that this will be a helpful way to sort of explain that to people a little bit. There's what we call metabolic flexibility, right? That's something that we want in our bodies. And what that means is your cells have the ability to either burn sugar or burn glucose, right? So what you're talking about is we either have this glucose energy or this fat energy. So they either can burn glucose or they burn fat. And so when we have metabolic flexibility, our cells can shift between them easily, right? So like if you go for a long period of time without eating, your cells can just say, oh, no big deal. There's no glucose available. That's all right. I can just burn fat. Well, when we're in that state of like doing this blood sugar roller coaster thing, that's metabolic inflexibility. And so our cells sort of lose that ability to easily shift into this other state of metabolism, essentially being able to access fat as a fuel source. And so that's why we get those symptoms, because we're sort of stuck in this, sugar burning mode, if you will. But when we can regain that ability to shift easily back and forth from one to the other, it is a fantastic thing. And it really helps stability in regards to how you feel, because fat is a much longer burning fuel source, as is protein. But when we're talking about cellular energy, using fat as a fuel source provides so much more energy. And your brain can use fat as a fuel source. So when you get into that, during periods of fasting, for example, so like overnight, your cells should be able to switch over and be able to use fat. And that is a much higher source of energy and more stability in regards to being able to go for a longer period of time without feeling so terrible and feeling like you need to like get something in. So I think the goal is like kind of getting to that state of being metabolically flexible so that your cells can do one or the other. And that leads to just feeling better in terms of how much energy you have and being able to not being so reliant on that sugar.
It's amazing what a difference it makes. And I love how you describe that, because I take it and because I'm a storyteller. So I'm like, it's like your body becomes the flex fuel car.
I love it. I love that.
You can use gas when you need it. And then when you're at the traffic signal and you don't need all the other stuff, it switches over and it uses the electric stuff. And then when we got to start up, and then it kicks back over. So, giving us that flexibility. We are the flex fuel car, guys.
I love that. Absolutely.
So, Nicole, when we are in this place of flexibility and we can move, our cells are easily moving between using a variety of fuel sources, and we're not just dependent on, or we've closed the door because our body doesn't remember, it doesn't have enough to do these other, the fat things. When we get it, because fat gets a bad rap, we all know that. So when we get in here and we're talking about, okay, we're now in this place where we've gotten our body to this place of regulation. What is possible? What happens to the body? Like, why do we even want to try and get there? What's the benefit?
The benefit? Yes. Thank you for asking that. So the benefit is basically you have an unlimited supply of energy. You don't have to now. So like I talked about before, when your blood sugar tanks, when you're reliant on sugar, you won't get into that situation because your body is like, oh, it's okay. I don't have available glucose. I can just turn to my fat stores. So it's like you have this continuous supply of energy. So energy, I would say energy is the, the reason to do that is stable energy and just feeling better. And again, your brain can use that fat as fuel source as well. So when it comes to, being able to think more clear and, be more sharp with your thinking, that's the goal. Feeling amazing, essentially. Let's say that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So on the burnout side of this, guys,
Yeah.
when you have created, now here's the thing. When we're in burnout, we think we have this finite amount of energy. And we honestly kind of do, because we haven't learned to tap into the infinite energy supply and sources. And we're especially not optimizing what Dr. Nicole Maholy is sitting here telling us so beautifully and illustrating in just the most granular ways of how that is being utilized and that flexibility that we need to have within our own bodies. Because here's what's possible. Number one, you then tap into exponential and infinite energy source because you can move between two, but you're sleeping better. Number one, that's usually the biggest complaint I hear. I don't sleep well, or I sleep all the time and I wake up and I don't feel like I'm rested. Brain clarity, ability to focus, having regulated emotions, having predictable energy. This also goes back to self-trust, trusting our body, because we're also in a relationship with this beautiful thing that we are housed in. And the more that we know about it and the more that we start to learn how it operates and functions, the more trust that we can have in it. Because most people, and I was included in this, when I was in burnout, I recognized that's what it was. I didn't trust. I would cancel plans or I wouldn't make plans because I didn't trust I was going to have the energy to do it. And this really helps to build that muscle. So Nicole, the next question I think that comes up on this one, unless you've got some stuff you want to add to that list.
No, that was beautiful. That was perfect. You mentioned, okay, so yes, actually, I guess I do. You mentioned sleep, and I'd love to just kind of touch on that just a smidge because I actually think this is important. Yeah, and I think this is something. I know this is something that a lot of people experience. I would often have people come in and say, "Oh yeah, I don't sleep well. I wake up this is a very common blood sugar dysregulation symptom, is to wake up in the middle of the night and you are wide awake. Because when you're in that blood sugar cycle where you're reliant on sugar as a fuel source, you go to sleep, of course, you're now a couple hours without sugar, right? And so when your blood sugar starts to dip, your body releases stress hormones, because those stress hormones actually help kick out more glucose. So they help raise your blood sugar levels. But the result of that wakes you up. You have just released adrenaline. So you are now awake. And so kicking into getting more metabolically flexible and stabilizing those blood sugar levels really does help get better sleep, because now when your blood sugar is not going to dip so low at night, because when it does, your body is going to say, that's okay. I can use fat as a fuel source tonight. So thank you for touching on that. That is so true.
Oh, thank you for layering that in. And I'm so glad that you went back and touched on this, because here's a little something to stop and pause and ponder for a moment, folks. If you're like me and you have mast cell activation syndrome, you're one of those beautiful trifecta patients. So you've got POTS and hypermobility, and you've got MCAS, or maybe yours is EDS instead of hypermobility. And this is one of the things that shows up in MCAS, is that we can have these adrenaline surges in the middle of the night as part of how our histamine response sometimes activates in our sleep. And think about this for a minute. What Dr. Nicole was just sharing about how our glucose levels also can activate that adrenaline surge in your body. So that you're waking up. So think about this. If that might be you and you have MCAS, this could be that second layer of why it might even feel more intense for you. Like I remember waking up and feeling like I was having a panic attack, and I would have been dead asleep 2 seconds ago, and then all of a sudden I'm like wired and I can't go back to sleep because my heart is pounding, and these things layer together. So, oh my gosh, thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you for putting that in there too. Yes, absolutely. And that adrenaline, a lot, people experience that and they don't know why. They don't understand why. They think, I don't know, I guess everybody's different, but I think understanding or being able to see why something is happening is huge in understanding, number one, how to address it, and that it's normal. I mean, it's not normal, but it's your body's doing what it needs to do to help you.
It's a normal response to the bad situation.
Exactly.
So Nicole, I think we need to know our numbers, because there's a ton of numbers when it comes to blood sugar. And there's a few key numbers that we really need to pay attention to and understand it. And I will just be totally honest. I mean, I love my medical professional folks. I mean, I worked in the medical profession. However, we tend to sometimes forget that what we learned isn't always common and understood by everybody, especially our patients. And sometimes we forget we just need to explain it in like the simple terms and break it down into like the easy, these are the important things terms.
Yeah.
And we give them a piece of paper and think, okay, they got it. But not always, especially around our numbers. So Nicole,
Right.
can you break down and tell us what numbers should we know and what do they mean?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. So when it comes to your blood sugar, the most obvious number to know is your fasting blood glucose number. Okay. And so what is normal is going to be less. So 99 milligrams per deciliter or less. So if you go into your doctor and you get a comprehensive metabolic panel, they're going to run it. It's part of a normal metabolic panel. So you're going to have to, as long as you've been fasting, you'll have your fasting blood glucose numbers. So 99 or less is considered normal. Okay. But I would say what I like to tell people is optimal. Here's what's optimal, because when you're at 99 and then you suddenly go from 99 to 100, it's not like you weren't, like you had been trending there. So I think paying attention to what your number, getting your blood work done regularly, and then being able to look back at the patterns, I think is really helpful. But optimal would be less than 85, okay, on a fasting blood glucose test. And then, like I said, as you start to trend upwards, just being cognizant of what's happening there. You are trending towards prediabetes. So between 100 and 125 milligrams per deciliter, that is going to be considered prediabetes. And then 126 milligrams per deciliter and above, that is considered diabetes. The other number that is really common to look at is something called hemoglobin A1C or HbA1c that you'll see on a test. And that is more of a 2 to 3 month picture of what your blood glucose numbers have been. Okay, so it gives you a little bit longer period of time, but it's measured in percentages. So 5.7% or less is considered normal. And then 5.7 to 6.4, that's considered prediabetes, and 6.5 and above, that's diabetes. So, but as far as optimal goes, I would say I like to see 5.1, 5.2%, somewhere around there as like an optimal number, something really fantastic to look at. And I like to put it out there too, that those are the two most common numbers to look at. But I think it's also amazing if you can get your insulin checked, because having that number, insulin resistance is, well, fatty liver is essentially the first step to developing insulin resistance, and then prediabetes, and then type 2 diabetes. But insulin resistance and your insulin tells more. Your insulin will rise way before your blood sugar numbers rise on a test. So I think periodically checking your insulin numbers, I think, can be really helpful. And less than 6, it would be optimal. Less than 10, I believe, is what is considered normal, but I like to see it less than 6. So that's just something for people to be aware of, I think, because I don't think it's talked about very often, and I know it's not tested very often. So I think that's helpful to know.
Oh my gosh, it really is. I mean, because we see advertisements on TV and are like, oh, this A1C and all this, and people are like, well, what does that really mean? I don't even know what mine is, and what's been tested for me, and maybe what hasn't. So to even know to say, hey, based on the numbers that we're seeing here, this is out of that sort of optimal range. Can we also just check my insulin? Is this something we can
Absolutely.
look at? And we can actually ask for that, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also ask for hemoglobin A1C too. Like, let's just say that you've noticed that your blood sugar numbers, maybe your doctor hasn't mentioned anything to you, but you've noticed, hey, my blood sugar numbers seem to be kind of creeping up. And actually they were over 100 last time, but nothing was said. So like, what does that mean for me? Because unfortunately, I love our medical system in regards to, like, they do fantastic for emergency care and a lot of great things, but I think there's more that we can do in regards to like directing people to the nutrition information that they need, because that is what's going to help you. The beautiful thing about prediabetes, insulin resistance, and diabetes is that they are type 2 diabetes, is that they are reversible, right? Like, you can reverse them with nutrition principles. They are lifestyle conditions, right? And so knowing that there's something that needs to change when it comes to nutrition, when you see those numbers, I think is really helpful. And like I said, if you're starting to see these numbers creep up for yourself on your blood tests, you can ask your doctor, hey, do you think we could do an A1C and an insulin maybe, just to see where I'm at, and if maybe this is a fluke, or if I need to pay more attention to this.
I love that, because, the more that we can know about our numbers, and really what does that mean for me? And this is what's really important. I think what I discovered is, in medicine, we get these homeostatic ranges for certain tests, right? Like A1C, and here's this range, right? And I tend to be a pretty sensitive person. So that barn door on the side of the barn that says, hey, if it falls in this barn door range, you're fine, honey, you know, but I wasn't feeling fine. Like, the way my body was feeling wasn't optimum. So I love that, you're talking about an optimum range, because what your optimum range is might be just slightly different than what the range says you should be, because maybe on the higher end, you're really experiencing a lot of symptoms and not feeling well. Whereas maybe 5 or 10 points down, you're a whole different human.
Totally. Yes, exactly. And like I said, because when you think about it, if glucose, the normal, is considered less than 99 milligrams per deciliter or less, well, is there much of a difference in terms of what you're doing between 99 and 100, right? Like, there's such a little change there. So just, I think, even knowing when you're right at the tippy top of that should be a signal to you too. Like, I wonder if I could or should be doing something. And that's why I like having an optimal number to kind of shoot for, because those ranges can sometimes, they don't always, just because you fall into a range, doesn't necessarily mean things are hunky-dory, if you will.
I was thinking hunky-dory, so there you go. You nailed that one. So Nicole, I mean, what are some insights that you have as a nutritionist, as a functional medicine doctor, stabilizing blood sugar overall? Like, if somebody is listening to this conversation and they are going, oh my God, this is me. Now, what the heck do I do? Where can people get started? Because this can feel really overwhelming. And this can also feel like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to change my diet. I'm going to have to change my food. And then we got all these resistance things and all these stories that come up. Where do we start, Nicole? Help.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's so true. When you're not feeling great, thinking like you need to overhaul everything can be so overwhelming. But the great thing is, you don't actually need to start seeing results. So I think one of the biggest things that I would love to put out there, as far as something, if you're doing this thing, if you can switch it, that would be fantastic. And that's sugar sweetened beverages. And I say that because they are such a massive impact to your glucose levels, because it's liquid sugar, right? Like there's nothing to keep that blood sugar nice and stable. It's your blood sugar shooting straight up. So if you're doing sugar sweetened beverages like sodas, fruit juices, the really sweet tea, or you're adding sugar to your beverages, if you can
don't call out my Southern sweet tea. I don't drink it.
If you can,
I used to though. Ooh.
Oh, I bet. I mean, so delicious. But the thing is there's other things that you can do to still experience. I like swaps. Anytime we can like kind of swap something that doesn't feel like a huge total shift. Like still, like if you love sweet tea, for example, instead of sweetening it with sugar, trying like stevia or monk fruit extract. Those are sweeteners that I really like that still keep blood sugar nice and stable, but they're a little healthier they're definitely healthier than artificial sweeteners and the sugar, right? Because you're still getting that sweet taste, but your blood sugar is not going bonkers. And so I think sugar sweetened beverages, if there's one thing to sort of focus on swapping out, like if you're going to say, okay, what's one food that item that I can look at, sugar sweetened beverages would be one. And I would say, things that are good alternatives would be like sparkling water with fresh squeezed lemon or lime. There's a brand called Spindrift where they have sparkling water with like lemon, lime, and grapefruit. And it's tasty, it tastes good, especially if you like that fizz. Like if you like a little fizz, sparkling waters are a fantastic way to still get a little something. If you do, let's just say there's people out there that are like hooked on soda, like a cola. That's a tough one to break, right? Because it like has a very very distinct taste. There is a brand of stevia sweetened sodas, and they're called Zevia. So that would be a good alternative, something to switch to that's not going to spike your blood sugar, but still at least lets you feel like you're, getting to have the thing that your mind is like, I need this for now. That's a good option. So that would be one thing that I would say to focus on if you're going to switch something. The next thing to actually stabilize that blood sugar that is super, super key is, I would say, number one, just protein. Focusing on protein. Protein, healthy fats, and fiber are the things in your nutrition that are going to help keep that blood sugar level nice and stable. So avoid eating sugars and starches by themselves. Always pair them with protein, healthy fats, and fiber. And one example of what this might look like in your life is, let's just say you, in the afternoon, you're tired and you're reaching for that snack, right? Let's say your blood sugar is starting to come down. You're reaching for the thing that maybe isn't going to be so helpful. A lot of people will say, as a healthy snack, they'll reach for fruit, like they'll have an apple. And fruit's not bad. I'm not knocking fruit, but fruit is all carbohydrate, right? And so even though there's a little bit of fiber in there, it's all carbohydrate. So it's going to be a quick burning fuel. If you pair that apple with a handful of nuts or some nut butter, you're also getting the protein and the healthy fats. So you're going to keep that blood sugar much more stable. So when it comes to snacks, being able, like choosing those snacks that have some protein and healthy fats in there as well, really will go a long ways in terms of stabilizing your blood sugar. So protein, healthy fats, and fiber, those should be like the thing that you're thinking about when it comes to this meal. Let's also really quick talk about the fact that I've mentioned afternoon crashes. Why do we talk about that? So why does that happen so often? Because it does happen a lot for people. And it could be several factors, but one is think about what you're eating for lunch. So if you're commonly getting that afternoon sort of crash, what are you having at lunch? And did you have enough protein and healthy fat and fiber in that meal, right? So if it was like a big bowl of pasta or something like that, it might just be that was just too much carbs and your blood sugar is still doing this. You got to pair some protein and healthy fats and fiber in there to really have that be a longer burning fuel source and have that meal really sustain you. Your meals should be sustaining you for about 4 hours. And so if that's not happening, try to work some more protein, healthy fats, and fiber into those meals.
That
And
is a
then,
really big piece of information to know that our meals should be sustaining us for 4 hours. Because I will guarantee you, if I just took a quick poll, most of you guys would say like 2 hours.
yeah, yeah. And that's where the quick burning fuel source after that 2 hours, that's probably when you're feeling like, oh, gotta have something else, right? So yes, thank you. I'm glad that was helpful because that should be what you're looking for. And if that's not happening, now you know, okay, what is there something missing in this meal? Do I have enough protein, healthy fats, and fiber? And protein is really the thing that I just have seen so often. People just don't get enough protein. And so that's why I'm kind of like focusing on that word, because I know that people really are missing that as a big piece in their meals.
So
And then
Nicole,
yeah.
because oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Go
So I
ahead.
just wanted to provide one more
Yep.
teeny little
Yeah, I
little
do.
snippet in terms of regulating that blood sugar level. And if you're somebody that is like feeling a little bit too exhausted to like implement a workout regimen or something like that, this I think will be helpful. Walking for light activity, light intensity walking for 10 minutes after your meals can make a big difference in your blood glucose regulation. So it's so minimal and it's not a lot. I mean, for some people that are in pretty severe burnout, that might seem, like a big deal. But if you can, even if you can just get out for 5 minutes, for example, and I say out, you can just walk around your house if you can't get outside. But if you can get outside, I mean, even better, because we all know, right? Like that's huge. At least for me, I know that's where I go for walks every day for my mental fitness, not necessarily even for my physical fitness, because it's so good for my mental health. But for blood sugar regulation, it is so helpful. And like I said, it only has to be 10 minutes. So it's not like you have to go out and do this hour-long, super sweaty workout or anything. Just 10 minutes, light intensity, and that can make a big difference.
Holy cow. So these are 3 huge ways, or well, actually 4, that you guys can start really making a shift and do it in a gentle, easy way. So number 1, remove the sugary beverages if at all possible. Now here's my thing. For sweet tea, guys, go for the monk fruit. Stevia leaves a funky taste in the back. It's great for the soda stuff, though. The stevia soda stuff's good. But monk fruit for your sweet tea. So for all my Southern folks out there, here you go. The next one was, add some more protein in, but also look at how you're pairing things with, I heard you telling us, make sure it's got fat, make sure it's got fiber, because that's going to make whatever you're eating, that sugar is going to burn longer, right? And so you've got more stable energy. And then go for a gentle stroll outside, preferably 10 minutes after we're eating, and make sure that when you're eating a meal, just start paying attention to the clock, guys. Is it giving you 4 hours of sustained energy? Are you finding you're crashing an hour and a half, 2 hours into that window of 4 hours? These are some places to look. So what I wanted to follow up and ask about, Nicole, is what are like maybe 2 or 3 this is like a good protein to start with? Because if we're trying to get more protein in our diet, where is a good protein to start with? Because there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah. So are you asking about protein powders or just protein in general?
Just protein in general.
Yeah. Thank you. So I really like, if like, let's just say breakfast as an example, if you can get some eggs in there, animal sources of protein really are going to be higher amounts of protein. So it's going to be easier to get the amount of protein that will really help sustain you for a long period of time with animal protein. So eggs, chicken, grass-fed beef, turkey, things like that are excellent. Plant-based sources of protein would be things like your nuts and seeds. Certain legumes like lentils, for example. Lentils are a more higher protein legume. So that would be okay too. But things like hemp seeds are great too. If you're like doing a smoothie or something and you want a plant-based protein source, hemp seeds would be good, and other nuts and seeds. I also do like protein powders as an option, especially if you're like, it's just an easy way to sneak more protein in, right? And so collagen is a nice one, because if you get unflavored collagen, it's kind of awesome because you can sneak it into like a lot of different things. Like, let's just say you don't know, you need to get a little bit more protein in your breakfast. You can throw 10 grams of collagen protein in your coffee, and it doesn't have a significant taste. So I like the protein powders, but the low carb protein powders I think are the best options. So again, we don't get that blood sugar spike.
Oh, definitely. Those are in my arsenal, my resource in my cabinet because they do help. I mean, I even have collagen in my mushroom coffee because I gave up coffee. I'm so proud of myself.
Good for you.
I'm like, okay, where's some places that can start to impact it? That was a big thing. So I'm super proud of myself, but it has
Yeah.
collagen in it. And so it's a really good source. And I had not thought of that. So thanks for sharing that with us. So guys, Nicole and I wanted to wrap up this conversation with something real important. And this is real personal to me right now. We are recording in March. And if you guys have been hanging around for a little bit, you know that right about now, I've had a lot of stress in my life. I had a lot of physical stuff. My kiddos were in an accident. So there's been a pretty high stress level. And I have been navigating that as well and as best I can. I've managed to stay out of burnout, which is huge because I was, like, oh my gosh, I got to navigate this. I feel it. I know I got to watch the stress. And I had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine, and she said, you might need some adrenal support because I was noticing that I have some cortisol abdominal fat that's packed on in the last couple of weeks because I was slipping back into some very old ingrained habits of finding some comfort food under stress. And that happened. And Nicole and I were talking before we started recording, and I said, hey, what do we need to talk about, especially when we're talking about burnout? We have these elevated cortisol levels. And what I know and what I didn't think about, and I'm so glad that I had a friend that was smarter than me the other day, and Nicole is definitely one of my other friends is way smarter than me. So we're going to have this conversation with Nicole around adrenal support and what we can do, because when we've been in these high levels of stress for long periods of time, so if you've been in chronic burnout or long-term burnout, you're probably experiencing some adrenal fatigue. So Nicole, what can adrenal fatigue kind of look like, and how do we start supporting it? What do we do? And how does that impact our energy?
Yes, thank you so much for asking
that was a lot right there.
Well, and when it comes to burnout, there's definitely that element of stress. And so for people that don't know this, you probably know this, maybe you don't, I don't know, but your adrenal glands are what release your stress hormones. So cortisol, and then, so there ends up being a lot of stress, if you will, on your adrenal glands because of what you're experiencing in life, right? So a couple of like categories for how to support your adrenal glands. Number one, all the things that I just mentioned with stabilizing blood sugar, that is really, really helpful and important for the adrenal glands, because one thing that I think I mentioned, one thing that happens when your blood sugar is low, when you're in that hypoglycemia state, your body perceives that as a stress. And so it releases cortisol and epinephrine, right? Adrenaline. And so that blood sugar roller coaster, if you will, adds more to the adrenal glands having to do that. So stabilizing your blood sugar takes some stress off of the adrenal glands and having to release more hormone to get your blood sugar up. So
my chocolate peanut butter candy bar fix lately has been making it worse.
That's okay.
Good to know.
But what that probably was giving you was magnesium, which we'll talk about in a second. And that is really helpful for the adrenal glands too. But yeah, stabilizing that blood sugar. So getting enough protein. That, again, protein is going to be really, really important and key for supporting the adrenal glands, because it's going to help keep that blood sugar nice and stable. So that is like number one, I would say, is get your blood sugar stable with the things that we just talked about. Number two, you mentioned chocolate, and the second nutrient I would like to touch on is magnesium. Getting magnesium rich foods. And a lot of times people that are sort of craving the chocolate are needing more magnesium in their body, because when you're stressed, your body cycles through more magnesium. Your adrenal glands need that. So magnesium rich foods. So that'd be like your green leafy vegetables And nuts and seeds are a really great source of magnesium as well. Your, green leafies, nuts and seeds, I think that's a good, foods to focus on for magnesium. And then I would say the think about is antioxidant vitamin C rich foods. And so that, again, your green leafies are going to be great there, but also things like bell peppers and just non-starchy vegetables, I think will be a fantastic addition. So really having like a well-rounded, focusing on those colorful vegetables, green, red bell peppers, I think are one of the highest sources of vegetables. Broccoli.
Hot diggity. I had that last night for dinner.
Your body knew. You knew. Supporting yourself. I love that.
Now I gotta get broccoli tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. You're getting some broccoli. And that's good in other ways too for the stress, for stress in your body. Broccoli and broccoli sprouts. If you can do broccoli sprouts, that's like one of the most nutritious foods you can consume. They're so good for you in so many different ways. But I think those are the big things that I would say is like getting that blood sugar stable, focusing on green leafies, nuts and seeds. And with nuts and seeds, I think I mentioned raw nuts and seeds. If you can do raw nuts and seeds, that's ideal because it keeps those oils fresh. And I like to store the nuts in the refrigerator to keep those oils more stable and fresh because they're delicate. So
I love that. That's so important. So Nicole, people are going to want to reach out. They're going to want to get in touch with you. They're going to say, hey, Nicole, this was amazing. I now have to know more about this, or I need help. And I know that you have a diabetes nutrition workshop, and I'm going to have the links down in the show notes below. And you have some other great resources, and we're going to have a link down there for some diabetes and wellness resources. But and please go subscribe to her amazing YouTube channel. I'll also have the link down in the show notes for that. But Nicole, how can people get in touch with you? How can they work with you? Share all the good stuff.
Thank you. Yes, as of right now, the diabetes nutrition workshop is one way that they can, one offering that I have that they can take a look at. In that workshop, I share 5 ways that are really foundational for balancing blood sugar. So that's one way. My YouTube channel, as you mentioned, that's another. And then if they need to get in touch, I am on Instagram as at Dr. Nicole Maholy. And then my website, in the show notes, you'll have the link to the workshop. That on the homepage for that, you can get in touch with me on that page too.
Natural Diabetes Reversal is such a great channel. I mean, the resources and the different topics that Nicole covers on that channel are so good. So please go give it a follow. Go get in touch with Nicole. Take the workshop. I mean, you do not have to be diabetic to benefit from all of this incredible knowledge. Actually, this is one of the key elements, the key nourishment keys that I talk about. This is like literal nourishment key. We are talking about your food and your blood sugar. Oh my gosh. Nicole, is there anything that like through this conversation or as you're reflecting that you're like, this is something I haven't said, or this is something I really want to highlight. This is important. I want you guys to know this about blood sugar and energy.
Thank you for the opportunity. I feel like, I think I've harped on the most important point, which is just keeping that blood sugar nice and stable, because that is so key for your energy and so many other aspects. Like we talked about, getting that metabolic flexibility back so that you can start feeling better, mind, body, mentally, all of that. And that is, keeping that blood sugar nice and stable with those tactics that we talked about. So thank you.
That is so beautiful. And guys, if you're not sure how spicy your burnout is and you're wondering, am I a level 1 poblano pepper? I have just a little bit of heat. I'm just kind of creeping in there, but I need to know it. Or I think I'm in a ghost pepper level 5. I think I'm one of those so hot you're not. I really need to know where I am. Go take the spicy pepper burnout quiz. The link is down in the show notes. And hey, if you have heard this conversation today and it has really hit home for you and you're ready to start energizing and really energize, like this is not how you want to feel 6 months from now. This isn't how you want to feel next week. You want to start feeling better and you actually want to get out of burnout and stay out. you got two options, folks. You can get my book, Unleashing Sustainable Energy, and you can DIY it. I give you everything, the whole map, the whole shebang. It is all there, assessments and all, and how to apply them. Or you can get in touch with me and you can really accelerate your energy mastery journey. Just reach out, send me an email, links down in the show notes below. Guys, this has been an important conversation here in May as part of Mental Health Month, because the way that we feel about our body, the way that our blood sugar impacts how we're feeling about ourselves, our mood, as well as our overall well-being is really powerful. And I cannot thank Dr. Nicole Maholy enough for being here today. She is absolutely one of those people that you need to know. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next week. Oh man, next week on the show, my guest, Nigel Rising, founder of Autistic Women's Network and host of the first all autistic women's conference, Autisticapalooza, and I will be diving into the burnout impact when you can't find where you belong. This is one of those top 3 biggest energy depleters, biggest contributing factors to burnout, and what also leads to chronic burnout, not knowing where we belong. And Nigel and I are going to be talking about a place where if you're an autistic woman, we got a spot for you to belong. Are you feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and just not like yourself? It could be burnout, but it's more than just work fatigue and lack of motivation. At Whittington Wellbeing, we understand that burnout impacts every aspect of your life, including your mental health. That's why we developed the Spicy Pepper Burnout Quiz and designed specifically for neurodivergent and disabled adults. Unlike other quizzes that only scratch the surface, ours delves deep into over 8 key impact areas of burnout. Take the first step towards reclaiming your well-being. Visit our website at whittingtonwellbeing.com and discover your spicy pepper level today. Plus, don't miss out on our upcoming free classes every Thursday. There's one this Thursday, guys, so don't miss it. We started May 16th, and it runs all the way through June 13th. You can pick any class, come as many times as you want, and it's where you can learn more about the unveiling method and uncover your degree of heat. So don't wait. Take control of your burnout journey today. Visit whittingtonwellbeing.com. Take that first step towards your best thriving life today. I'm so excited that you're here with me. And hey, be sure you show up on Thursday and join me for that free degree of heat class. When you know what your spicy pepper level is, the next step is to discover what your degree of heat is, because that's going to give you the map to getting out of burnout. It's going to tell you more about what you need to know about you right now. No judgment here, folks. This isn't about what you're doing or not doing. This is just about, hey, I'm going to get curious. Where am I right now? And hey, guys, as we wrap up the show, I want to share this fantastic song. I just love it so much. And to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the show. Thank you for being part of the conversation, showing up in the chat. Hey, Edna. Hey, Andrew. Thanks for being here today. And so many of you other guys that show up all the time. I can't believe that we have been here together and sharing this conversation. And I want to know how it's impacting you. I want to know, how is it making a difference in your life? Because you matter. Your journey matters. What you're experiencing in your life matters to me, and I want to be able to help you get out of burnout. So very much from the deepest part of my heart and my soul, thank you for being here.
Thanks for being here. It's been quite a ride. Energy mastery, let's turn the tide. Top shelf guests, dropping wisdom bombs. Join us next week, where the energy's strong. Beyond Chronic.